Good morning, everybody. My name is Kristen Urisic-Scott from Urisic Label, and I am a proud SEPC board member and the education co-chair here for you today. We're very excited to get the 2020 Southern Exposure education session started, starting off with the Plight of Plastic session about a very important topic facing our industry. I wanted to take a minute to thank our session sponsors, B&W Quality Growers, Birch Farms, Florida Classic Growers, Keenan Farms, Nikki Gregory Company, Robinson Fresh, as well as our refreshment area sponsors. So when this session's done, you can go out there, grab some coffee, water, some goodies, and that is Aco Farms, Four Seasons Produce, Fowler Brothers Fowler Farms, National Mango Board, Tasty Fruity International, and the Nudes Company. Let's give them a round of applause. I wanted to take a second to just remind you all of the antitrust guidelines that we follow under. You can see that up on the screen. There's also a part in the app if you have any questions about what that is. I wanted to briefly introduce our speakers for today. We have Annabella DeFreeman, the Senior Manager of Sustainable Produce from Walmart. Janice McIntosh, the Director of Marketing Innovation and Sustainability from Nature Ripe. Natalie Schumann, the Director of Trade and Retail Marketing at Appeal. Brad Dennis, the VP of Sales and Marketing at CKF Inc. Kathy Lawrence, New Business and Market Development at ProSeal. And Elizabeth Urisic, the Product Development Cross-Functional Team Lead at Urisic Label. Thank you all for being here today, and we'll get started.
Welcome, everybody. Walmart is honored to be here today to share on a topic that is ingrained in our strategy, that is, it brings life our mission to help people live better, and it's part of our ways of working. So let's get started first with a common ground on, not that. That's what happens when you're not checking the monitor. Let's get started with all speaking the same language. So here on the slide, you see this, a study conducted by National Geographic that talks about why is plastics an issue. And we see the key takeaways is more of the plastic has been produced since 2000. A lot of the plastic stays for hundreds of years. The short useful life, is about 6 months life cycle. There's very few collections still, and more importantly, the customers, sometimes they don't know what or how to recycle. So even if you as growers and us as retailers are trying to do as much as possible, if the customer doesn't know what to do with the package after they use it, then part of the equation is not working. But there's good news. We all here in this room, we care. We have a sense of urgency of action. And today you're going to hear some best practice, and we're here to share our experiences and hopefully come out with some calls of action after this session. Let me share some of our commitments at Walmart. The third one is of making products more sustainable by 2025. What do we mean by more sustainable? On this graph you see we have 6 areas of focus: climate, nature, waste, people. We leverage innovation, and we also foster a culture of transparency from our suppliers to us, from us to our customers and to our stakeholders. Let's go deep now into packaging and plastics. By 2025, we want to have 3 things. 1, use less plastic. Try to reduce as much plastic as we can from the products. 2, make it recyclable. By 2025, all our private brand products will be 100% recyclable. We're aiming for a 20% recycled content. And the third one, we need to help our customers. Labeling. We encourage all of you to check our recycling playbook. And you can see it on the screen. There is a link. The recycling playbook is a document that we'll see in a little bit in the next slide that helps anybody check their packaging, their current packaging, and what to do with it. And also reach out to How to Recycle. They can issue a label of your packaging so that you can share with your customers what to do with your packaging after they use it. And third, based on those results, take action. This is what the recycling playbook looks like. We have green, red, and yellow, and pretty much green, you're okay, your packaging is recyclable, is good. Red, big call out. There's something urgent for you to do. And yellow, there's not much to do with that type of material, so we would invite you to participate in collective action of trying to do something to make it more recyclable. And here I'm ending. According to the Voice of Food Retail, given the growing share of organic and value-added produce, packaged produce has grown to 53% of total sales. Additionally, more millennials prefer packaged produce than pick up your own produce. On the other hand, the EPA reported in 2017 that containers and packaging make up 30% of total generation of municipal solid waste. Our call of action today: use less plastic, make it recyclable, and label it. Thank you. And now we are going to hear from our panel.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janice McIntosh, and thank you, Annabella. I want to say right off the bat that we've used a lot of your playbook, and we're part of the Gigaton. So it's been an inspiration to see that somebody puts this type of thing forward for us to use so we can move our stuff forward. I'm going to represent Nature Right, but I'm also going to represent the berry growers across the board, because we all kind of deal with the same issue with plastic. Let's see, where's my slide? So about 6 months ago, I gave a presentation called The Plight of Plastic. And I really wanted to change this to the possibilities of plastic. There is opportunities ahead. There's ways we can change things and make our plastics better. And there's a need for plastic in certain commodities. I don't know how many of you remember. I'm sure a large part of you remember the pint baskets with the pint pack with the little green baskets. Funny story, in my office the other day, I brought it out of my magical closet that has all my packaging in it. And somebody says, "Ooh, what's that?" And I said, "That's what strawberries used to be packed in." And so fortunately, I've been part of this revolution of the clamshell from basically the beginning. When I first got into strawberries, we were about 10-15% in the clamshell. We had a lot of issues, but overall, it changed the berry category. As you can see, the consumers had visibility of product, food safety issues went away, merchandising got a whole lot easier, reduced food waste, which was a huge thing because I used to steal the berries off the displays. They reduced the need for skilled labor at the retail level, and berries have led the category in dollar sales in the department, in the produce department. So one of the things that's happened in the last 6 months, like I said, I presented 6 months ago, and only one slide that I used last time is in this deck, and that was the one I just showed you. Since that time, a lot of great things have happened to kind of help the berry industry move forward and what to do with their clamshells. And one of them is the CPMA came out with this executive summary, which was awesome for us because it solidified the fact that we need plastic in berries. And Ron is here. If you need to download this report for your commodities, I would really recommend it. Come on. Okay, so the other thing that's been really cool that's happened in the last year or so is the fact that we've had some new recycling plants come online that can take low-grade plastics and bring them back up to, say, Coca-Cola quality. And one of them is Our Planet Earth, which I've been working with for about a year and a half now. And they're recycling thermoforms, which normally the most normal thing is the water bottle. In fact, strawberry and blueberry clamshells primarily use water bottles to make their clamshells now. But PET can be recycled indefinitely. So the problem is not the PET, there's not the infrastructure. So these lines, these new companies, there's a couple here in Florida, and like I said, one in California that are coming online that are able to do thermoforms. So NatureRipe, I'm just going to talk quickly about what we're doing to kind of decrease plastic and increase the recyclability, is in the playbook that Walmart has put out and the APR, Associated Plastic Recyclers, they recommended a different kind of label, which is a BOPP label, so you can the recyclers can easily recycle plastic. Paper is horrible to put onto plastic for the recyclers. We are expanding our heat seal line. We use ProSeal machines. Kathy's going to talk a little bit about that. We've been at that about 6 years, and that's been very successful, and that's doubling in volume every year. So that's about a 33% reduction in plastic. So there's our reduction part of the component. And then we are implementing the how to recycle on all of our packaging that it kind of hits that target that how to recycle wants us to reduce or be able to recycle. And then we're continuing to be involved, and I recommend anyone that's trying to search out answers is to be involved in any of the committees, that PMA, CPMA, anything you can do to kind of learn more and be able to get better at recycling or your packaging design. So I'm going to finish with change is good, but it's better together. And that means competitive collaboration. The first time I heard this was at a Walmart meeting. Sorry, I keep saying Walmart. But it was brilliant. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Why would I go out as NatureRipe on my own and try to change the world when I have all these competitors that are going to be doing something different? That's not going to be meaningful. So we started back about 5 months ago talking to our competitors, saying, what can we do to move the needle? And we finally decided to come out with a plan, and that was basically by 2025, we're going to, as an industry, change our labels from paper to the BOPP labels. And I was searching the internet about a month ago, and I found this collaboration that Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola did, and I went, hey, if they can do it, we can do it. So I made up that graphic, says, hey, we're as cool as they are. We got together and we did it. So, and then that's just a snap screenshot of one of the press releases that came out about our announcement. And then finally, okay, this is our collaborative solution. It's wash away labels. So we're all changing our labels from paper to the BOPP by 2025. And to kind of close the loop, and this whole opportunity message that I want to give is made possible by this type of announcement. And Nestle's is going to invest $2 billion to buy recycled content. Well, that's the pull-through that the industry needs. If I'm setting up my clamshells to be recycled, somebody has to buy it. And so we need announcements like this of people that are committing to buying recycled content. And then you've got the closed loop, and that's key to success. And thank you. Down, second one.
Yeah, I've got it.
Oh, it did it to me.
There we go. Great. Good morning, everyone. I am thrilled to be here with my fellow panelists and stoked to see everybody out here in the audience. We are at standing room capacity only. This is fantastic. and really important because we have this very serious topic to all create some dialogue around today. So my name is Natalie Schumann. I've been a marketing professional for 15 years. I launched my career, really grew up in the produce industry. I was one of the first marketers in the grape category to launch the cast polypropylene grab-and-go handle bag. And I mention that because I think it's a great example of why we are all here. When we launched that bag that is now ubiquitous across the produce department, we were thrilled because of what it did for merchandising and for sales. But I don't think we were thinking at the time about what it was doing to kind of contribute to this issue of plastic waste. And so I'm really happy to be here because this is about creating dialogue that says, how do we evolve and how do we innovate and how do we find solutions that don't make us have to compromise between profits and people and planet. And it's the philosophy that we can do good business while also doing good. And that's the business philosophy of the company that I'm here to represent today, Appeal Sciences. So at Appeal, we have a mission to work with nature to improve access to quality, to reduce waste, and to ensure a more abundant future for the planet. We have a plant-derived solution that gets applied to the outside of fresh fruits and vegetables after harvesting that is doubling to tripling the shelf life and dramatically decreasing food waste in the supply chain. So why are we so hung up on this issue of food waste? Where am I supposed to point this?
I think there.
There we go. It's because when we look at the facts, they're telling us that we have a massive food waste issue. It's preventing us from feeding our growing world population, and it's contributing at a very large scale to greenhouse gas emissions. And when you look at it on a financial basis, money is literally evaporating from our food distribution system. That's money that's coming out of the pockets of hardworking families to the tune of $1,600 a year. And that's money that's evaporating from our bottom lines as well. US businesses lose up to $57 billion a year due to this food waste issue. But food preservation has been a problem that's been around since the dawn of man, and we've been trying to find solutions since before the Roman Empire. And we've actually done a pretty good job. So we have a number of technologies, current technologies that have been innovations and have really fundamentally changed the way we are able to take perishable items and distribute them around the world. These technologies have been catalysts for the mobilization of our modern developed world. They've helped bring urbanization and industrialization and a move towards a healthier, more plant-forward diet. But like many technological innovations, they've also come with some inherent weaknesses, and usually in the form of either being incredibly costly or affecting health and safety or being a detriment to our environment. For Appeal, this is not a call to arms against current technologies, but a call for alliances. What we want to do is ask everybody to take a step back and to think about what can we do, how can we optimize our fresh produce supply chain to be more cost effective, more efficient, more sustainable when we combine all of our current technologies in our toolbox with this extended rate of shelf life that we can enable. When we dig deeper into plastic, we find that plastic packaging serves many functions. Grouping, taking together small multiple pieces of produce to sell together, protection, marketing, my favorite, and shelf life extension. And the reality is that today we can't eliminate all packaging because some of these functions are very critical to how we distribute fresh produce. But there are areas where we can reduce reliance. And for us, that's particularly in this area of shelf life extension, where we're using single wrap plastic to retain moisture and to prevent mass loss and generally help these produce items stay fresher longer. This clicker is going to be the bane of my existence. There we go. So you might be asking, like, how is this even possible? We'll come to find out the solution was really growing right under our feet the whole time. So every plant that grows above the surface of water has its own natural defense system in the form of a cuticle layer that creates a skin or a peel. And what a peel has discovered is how we can take those molecular building blocks of that defense system and through a water-based solution, reapply them to the outside of fresh fruits and vegetables. What that allows us to do is to create a thin, edible layer of protection. And if I can click to the next slide, I can tell you what that does. And what that does is that allows us to create really an optimal microclimate inside every piece of fruit. So that's helping to lock in moisture as well as minimize oxidation, which are the two major culprits of food spoilage. And with this, we're getting at least double the shelf life. So that gives us as an industry more time to store, to transport, to merchandise, and ultimately to consume fresh produce. This shelf life extension is enabling us to introduce our first category where we will be able to actually ditch the plastic, which is with long English cucumbers. And we will be launching this product with our go-to-market partner, Hellings, who actually allowed us to quantify what the impact of this would be. And so with Hellings alone, they'll be able to eliminate upwards of 85,000 pounds of packaging, plastic packaging from their packaging stream. So to make that a little bit more tangible, that is 85 million straws. That's enough plastic wrap to wrap the entire Empire State Building 7 times, and that's one supplier in one single year. So we're really excited about this, and we're very optimistic about the future, where we can go when we think about what more time gives us and as an industry, and what we can do kind of collectively to make sure that we are doing good business, but also doing business for good. So we invite you to join our cause. We have an innovation station where we'll have live samples, so you can see how a peel works with the produce. And you can obviously follow us and our story here on all of these channels. So thank you for the opportunity to be part of this very important collaborative dialogue that's focused on solutions.
Thank you, Natalie. My name's Brad Dennis. I'm the Vice President, Sales and Marketing with CKF. I'm actually standing in for Shannon Bowes, who's our Director of New Market Development and the subject expert. I'm used to getting out of her way and letting her communicate the benefits of EarthCycle. Nice to be here in Tampa. There's a couple Canadians in the room here. We all left 35 centimeters of snow in Toronto yesterday, so as much as it's a little chilly here, it's balmy. I think we should also take a moment to say that Shannon would love to be here with the panel, and that she sends her best. The group in the front here in these wonderful step-up shirts, we can't not say you guys look fantastic. My goal is to talk to you all about EarthCycle, thermoform fiber as a option to traditional plastics as a platform for your produce and agriculture. A little bit about the company that manufactures EarthCycle, CKF. We're a privately held Canadian company. We're 85 years old. We have 5 plants in Canada and employ 800 people. We actually manufacture platforms in fiber, but also in recycled PET, so I am understanding the benefits of both, and polystyrene. My goal is to talk to you a little bit about thermoform fiber today. So, Earthcycle, the simple, natural, smart choice. What's it all about? Well, a little bit, some snippets. It is manufactured here in North America in our plant in Hansport, Nova Scotia. We are certified through the European standard OK Compost, and all of our product is widely recyclable, and it's made from renewable resources. It's actually made from a blend of virgin hardwood and recycled corrugate, or what we call DLK. So we, a core competency of CKF for 85 years is molded fiber. I was giggling a little bit when Janice talked about those ugly punnets, those pints and quarts that actually were sitting in her office. We actually were the ones making those.
Sorry.
But what's really important about this is because sustainability is so important, we were just ahead of the game 85 years ago. But if you stand on the corner long enough, the parade will come around again, and we can't keep up with orders for those ugly pints and quarts. So amongst other molded fiber products, we make egg cartons. We also make those 4-cup carriers that you can get at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. And we make a brand of single-use tableware called Royal Chinette. It's called Chinette here in the US. Same product, different substrate, and now we're making thermoform fiber for Earthcycle, which has become a global brand. One of the things that's really important is to know that all of our raw materials are North American sourced. There are also suppliers that are all FSC certified, and our substrates are certified food safe through FDA for North America and BFR for Europe. I'm going to struggle with it too.
I'm glad it's not just me.
I was told not to point it at this. It was supposed to be pointing at that guy back there. Here we go. We are certified home compostable and we're recyclable. So the European certification is the EN 13432. It has been gained through a lot of science base and rigor. We've learned through independent carbon footprint consultants here in North America that 8 to 10% of packaging is actually composted in a home environment. Earthcycle is also recyclable. It's the first thing that a consumer understands. It's easy for them to know that it can be recycled. And just a little fact about Canada, 90% of paper-based packaging is actually recycled. My colleagues are either going to talk about sustainability relative to food waste or shelf life extension, and that is something that's very important to CKF and positions CKF in a unique fashion. There's actually 3 examples here that we've actually experienced. The first one is a 20% shelf life extension through a top-sealed mushroom punnet. This is with a grower packer in the UK through a very large retailer in England, and it was done with our partner ProSeal. We have a second one that is most recent, and that is with a North American supplier, grower of lettuce, herbs, vegetables. And this was in a flow wrap environment, and once again we achieved a 20% shelf life extension. I'll get into it a little bit later about the next one about top sealed grapes, but we achieved 10 days from actual seal to retail. And what's most important is that in all soft fruit applications, we've been able to match the shelf life of PET across multiple supply chains. Operationally, and of course that's very important because we understand manufacturing and processing costs, we've been able to match automation speeds to PET. top seal lines, we're achieving 270 packs per minute. And where we have denesters applications, we're achieving 300 packs per minute. We've been able to confidently say that when replacing a clamshell with a earth cycle punnet and a lidding film, you can say that 90% of plastic's been removed. What's most important? Sales lift. 5% increase has occurred for us with a general presentation on earth cycle, and we actually have a greenhouse brand owner who achieved a 20% increase using earth cycle. We too will be in the innovation area. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and I'm going to pass it over to Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Kathy Lawrence, and my husband Ed Lawrence and I have recently joined ProSeal with new market and business development. We've been reaching out to retailers and suppliers and sharing sustainable packaging solutions through top sealing. All right, clicker. So about ProSeal, we are a 20-plus-year-old company. We originated in the UK. We manufacture tray sealing equipment. And so we have the knowledge, experience, and expertise to work closely with you to ensure you receive the best top sealed machinery specific to your individual needs. We can seal 30 to 300 packs per minute, depending on your tray that you're using in your sealing process. We have over a range of 20 machines with 7 sealing processes. And we have become a global company. We have 3 manufacturing sites in England, Australia, and Richmond, Virginia, my hometown. We also have distributors across the globe. So as we've discussed today, plastic is not all bad. So with tray sealing solutions, this is one way that we can help with plastic reduction is by replacing the clamshell lid with a top sealed film. And it has been mentioned, you can reduce the amount of plastic used by 20 up to 45% just by replacing the lid of a clamshell with a film seal. We also are tamper evident. It's easy to tell when a top sealed product has been opened. It keeps your product securely in place in the container. We have proven drop tests where the product has been shown where it can withstand a fall from the grocery shelf to the floor, which also helps with slip and spill hazards. It also, let me see, where am I? We also can seal different kinds of methods on our one machine. We can do pulp, fiber, PET plastic, foil, just to name a few. And by using pre-printed films, you can also eliminate the need for additional labeling, and you can print your graphics across the entire area of the top seal. It's a great place to put your how to recycle label right there on top of your product. So this is a slide that shows an example of over 9,300 clamshell lids on a warehouse floor next to the same amount of film it would take to seal the same amount of containers. So as you can see right here, there's a great savings in plastic. For over 1 million trays sealed, you can save 10 tons of plastic right there. The second way top sealing can help with plastic reduction and sustainable solutions is shelf life extension. And in the produce packaging world, your product is purposely designed to control the respiration rate of your product. We have the ability to contact you with film suppliers that can provide you with high-tech laser perforated films that can create an ultra-high control level in your packaging environment. And by using gas flushing and material technologies through perforations and barrier properties, you can also extend your shelf life. Food waste reduction. As we've been speaking today, over 1/3 of all food produced ends up becoming wasted. So using effective packaging, we can help reduce this. The rigid trays help the product continue through the supply line, and using gas flush and barrier properties also can help with food waste. So ProSeal also utilizes recycling programs, and in our Richmond, Virginia location only last year, because we do manufacture machinery, we have a lot of scrap metal. And we were able to recycle over 119,000 pounds of aluminum and 5,000 pounds of steel last year. We also recycle our corrugated boxes and trays and film. And we have an in-house recycling program for our associates. So there's 3 components of tray sealing. There's the equipment supplier, which is ProSeal, whoops. There's the tray supplier and the film supplier. And ProSeal will work closely with the tray and film suppliers to ensure that all 3 components are working as intended. We have a full test kitchen in our Richmond, Virginia location, and we invite suppliers to come use our kitchen for product trials to make sure that all 3 components work as they're supposed to before they're introduced into the marketplace. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak with you today. We also have an innovation station. We have a sustainability box that has various types of trays and film that you can look at that can be processed on our tray sealing equipment. So I invite you to stop by and register to receive one. And thanks again.
Hopefully I can figure out the mysterious clicker today. Good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Urisic, and I'm representing Urisic Label today. Thank you to SEPC, first of all, for allowing me to be on this panel and represent the labels part within the recycling stream for PET thermoforms or clamshells. We've talked a lot about the benefits that labeling and plastic provides to the fresh food industry, so I'm going to dive in quickly. Yes. So Urisic Label was founded in 1969 as the A.M. Urisic Company, and we actually have our origins in fresh produce in the Pittsburgh area. We've expanded to really focus on the fresh food arena, and we serve at the speed of fresh. And what that really means is that we understand the unique challenges within the supply chain that every product within the fresh perimeter encounters. This could be from growing processing, it could be from shipping the product to the store, or even at the actual retail level, and what those products have to endure within the supply chain in terms of their packaging. So we pride ourselves on understanding those applications in terms of labeling and being able to bring that education to our customers. We also partner with trade organizations that are complementary within our markets that we serve. We do this for a couple reasons, to be able to participate in things like these, to be able to share our knowledge, but also to learn more about the trends and bring back education that corresponds with the specific markets that we work in to our customers, so that we're able to give them advice on how to improve their labeling to entice, inform, and inspire consumers at the point of purchase. So around 10 to 15 years ago, we started to feel some pressure internally and externally, both from our associates as well as from our customers in terms of what we were doing to decrease our environmental impact, especially as a printer. And I'm sure everyone in the room can kind of relate to that sentiment and that feeling from their customers as well as the people that are working within their business. So at that time, there really was not a lot available within the domestic market for printing in order to really transform our product sustainability. So we chose to focus a little bit more internally. We leaned on one of those trade organizations, the Tag and Label Manufacturers Institute, or TLMI. Use a lot of acronyms, so I'm gonna try to explain them all for you guys here. And we really leaned on their education in terms of the standards that we should be meeting within the print industry and sustainability. We achieved their life certification program, and with a matter of a few years, we went from 100% landfill to 99.6% landfill free, utilizing a waste to energy program. We also achieved in 2014 the Environmental Leadership Award through this organization, but we still felt like we weren't quite doing enough. We wanted to have a little bit more impact beyond our four walls, specifically because so much of what we do focusing within fresh food goes on single serving plastics. So we kind of made that our mission to learn more about the label and its impact within the recycling stream. and really relied on those industry partners to do that. Oh, I was so close. So along with TLMI, we also leaned on the Association of Plastic Recyclers. You heard Janice mention them a little bit earlier. And what I'm going to do today is talk about really the system issues that exist within the recycling stream for thermoforms. It's not a one issue ordeal. There's really a couple of barriers that we have to work to break down. But there are a lot of solution drivers in place, and I'm going to talk about some of those people that are driving solutions as well. So you heard about collection from both Annabella and Janice. This is truly the starting point for MRFs, or material reclamation facilities. If we don't have collection, then we don't have recycled content to put back into packaging. So it's really important that people driving change like how to recycle are really educating consumers on PAC. They're revolutionizing this idea of communication within recycling and really bringing about some change to the newer generations to educate them on what happens to their package after they're done using it. This kind of leads right into the economics of the current recycling for thermoforms. Currently, it's only about 1% of what MRFs take in terms of their bale, so it has to make sense to them. There has to be an end market for them and someone for them to sell to. And that's kind of why I introduced this I Promise on the screen as well. If you haven't heard of them, I would encourage you to look up the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. They're part of the closed loop economy, and they're introducing brands like Pepsi, Nestle to make the big promises in terms of their packaging sustainability. And that is what is so, so important, that the people in the room here today that are actually designing packages, that they're demanding recycled content, that they're asking their suppliers, where is this recycled content coming from, and ensuring that when they're actually doing packaging design, they're designing for a circular economy. This also leads us into the logistics. So you heard a little bit about bottle to bottle and why bottle recycling is typically what's going into your PET thermoforms. It's a little bit easier to bottle recycle versus a thermoform recycling. Recyclers require more assets to recycle thermoform and get the PET flake back into food grade yield to then be able to turn back into recycled content. But again, we have a lot of people working for solutions on this. I don't think that it was included up there, but right under I Promise, you guys should have seen a logo of Our Planet Earth. We've been working with them as well at Euresic Label, had the ability to tour their plant and really learn more about the recycling process. And what they're able to do is they're able to condense a lot of these traditional touch points that have made recycling for thermoforms in the US not economically viable. They're able to as well raise the intrinsic viscosity, which is one of the next issues that we're going to talk about. So we do have people working on solutions here, and I do have a couple of samples of their products that are 100% recycled content. So it's very promising when we see companies like this really working to kind of innovate within the recycling streams in the US. When we talk about intrinsic viscosity, very technical term, but really all it means is how strong is your plastic. We talked about kind of the differences between getting thermoforms versus bottles back to food grade plastic. And what this really means is that it needs to be able to withstand some of those unique challenges in the supply chain that fresh foods go through. So you want that strong plastic that's able to be recycled and reused within that closed loop economy so that there is an end market for it. Finally, labels. So the part that we love. Of course, there's a lot of barriers going on here, but once we actually get the PET thermoform to the recyclers, labels tend to cause a huge headache for them. And that happens in terms of the actual label separation from the PET flake. So the Association of Plastic Recyclers is doing some great work here in terms of creating the guidelines for the materials that label suppliers should be using, materials that contribute to a positive recycling stream versus taking away from the yield that the recyclers are able to then push further into the stream. So I'm going to go into labels just very, very briefly, but the top 3 things that you should kind of know when you're talking to your label supplier for PET thermoforms. And the first of those is degradable additives. So again, just another fancy word really for the adhesive. The adhesive on the label is what's so important in the recycling stream. It needs to be able to wash away, hence the term wash away. And it needs to be able to separate to create a really nice clean flake that they can then upcycle. We want that flake to be as close to virgin flake, which is what's used in most of your guys' PET packaging right now, so that it's able to be sold into the end market and that we have users for it. Inks are also a very big issue. We don't want the flake to be discolored, and especially when you're using paper versus film labels, this is an even bigger issue. You heard Janice talk about the idea of recycle ready and the fact that the entire berry industry is coming together to move to this type of label, specifically film over paper. And if there's one thing that you can take from this talk today in terms of labeling, it would be that an easy change for you to make is to switch to film labels. They will always be preferred in the recycling stream. And even better, you could switch to a film label that is APR certified or tested. And that means that the adhesive used on that film label is much friendlier to the recycling process for recyclers. So our solution to a lot of these issues that we've been seeing in PET thermoform recycling after kind of going through this education with all of our industry partners is to introduce a product line called Sustain Label. This is a product suite that will be ever evolving. We were working with our suppliers to be able to have offerings that are able to meet the unique needs of the fresh industry. As we discussed earlier, each product is different, what it has to go through in the supply chain, what the package needs to be able to withstand. So this suite will be ever evolving as we have more options that come out with our material suppliers. We'll also continue to work with these different industry organizations to really push forward in terms of testing. And we will always be committed to being very transparent about the recycling or the recyclability of the label and the entire package. We also obviously really encourage taking credit for what you're doing in terms of recyclability on your package, and we're happy to advise the way that you should be claiming that on pack. So I just want to thank everyone for this opportunity here to talk a little bit today. We will be premiering a marketing video on labels' impact within the recycling stream for PET thermoforms a little bit later today. You can find that on my LinkedIn if you're interested. And if you're interested in learning about any of the organizations that we work with or about our Sustain Label line, please come and see us. We have a booth at the show, and I'd be happy to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody. Can somebody just go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Well, now we're going into some interesting questions from our panel. So Kathy, let's start with you. What do you predict the marketplace will look like in the next couple of years in regards to packaging?
Well, ProSeal originated in the UK, and as you know, the world tends to look at the UK and Europe for packaging innovations. They have gone through the sustainability challenge that the US is really just trying to get into. So if you go and look at the market in the UK or in Europe, you will see the produce area in particular is vastly different. Just about all the products are predominantly top sealed. So I believe that the US is going to replicate what the UK and Europe markets look like in the next 5 years.
Thank you, Kathy. Natalie, do you see innovations like Appeal eliminating plastics completely? And if not, what are some applications where you see Appeal being used in conjunction with plastics?
Thank you. That's a question we get asked commonly. So for Appeal, our primary goal is to extend shelf life so that we can increase the likelihood of consumption of all of the fresh produce that we are working so hard to get to consumers. And so if we were to eliminate packaging completely today, that would be counterproductive to that goal. So we're really focusing on where we can reduce reliance, which is particularly around that shelf life extension area of functionality with packaging. But where we can't have an impact on packaging, what we can do is be a complementary solution so that we're not only, for instance, with berries, taking a product that's very fragile, sort of a diva of fresh produce when it comes to perishability, and keeping it protected with plastic packaging, but we can then also use Appeal to extend shelf life so that we're minimizing oxidation and increasing the likelihood that a consumer is going to take that package home and open it up, and every berry is going to look great, and they're not going to throw the whole batch out because they opened it and found that like one moldy berry in the middle. So that's where we see us being able to have an impact as a complementary solution.
Thank you. And I think also it's important two things: the customer in mind at all times, the shelf life, but also the home life. Because don't you hate it to have something bought today and then tomorrow is ruined? So we need to, that also helps to the waste, adds to waste.
Exactly.
Brad, is certified home compostability for packaging relevant to today's customer?
Yes, it is. We believe that certification is relevant as it relates to the end of life of the product. How did we get to home compost? In 2017, we were developing our business. Kathy talked about going to Europe and then coming home. We did that. We went over to Europe and found a home for our cycle. What was relevant in Europe was certain end-of-life chemical state was on the minds of consumers and retailers. And the OK Compost certification for both industrial and home required a measure of 100 parts per million of PFAS. So that was in 2017. We went through the rigor and testing to get certified to ensure that we met those levels in a composted state. What's happened is that concern has migrated to North America, and it is relevant for retailers and consumers here in North America as well. So for that reason, we maintain this international OK Home Compost standard.
Thank you, Brad. Janice, can you tell us how the berry industry united for the change?
Oh, sure. Well, I think it kind of happened at Fresh Summit. So it was the higher-ups, the executive team kind of got together at our company and started walking the floor and talking to others, competitors, and kind of getting them on board. And it kind of started this conversation. And then the Strawberry Commission got involved, and they did a fabulous job of bringing all of the berry growers and shippers together. And then they started having meetings, and then they started creating a white paper, like, what does this mean? Because we're talking about something that a grower has no idea what we're talking about. It's completely foreign to them. They're just harvesting berries. And so we started educating them and bringing them in for meetings. And then we started talking to other commissions in other countries in South America and explaining it to them, and they're like, oh yeah, we're in, we want to be in. And so there had to be some key decisions made, and we made sure that everybody was in agreement before we had the great announcement. But it was just an understanding, it was explaining it. Like, I understand the label issue, but not everybody does. So once they started getting it, they're like, what? Just changing a label is going to keep it out of landfill maybe? They had no idea. Everybody thinks clamshells are recycled. A lot of people do. And it's called wishful recycling. You put it in the blue bin, you feel really good about it, and they get it at the recycle. I've been there at the MRFs. They take it right out, stick it in a landfill immediately. They don't even try to recycle it. So it was an education thing. So that's the primary thing, was educating them, and then they said, yeah, we're in.
Thank you. Education. Elizabeth, Janice mentioned a wash-away label, the same concept as Euro 6, I think I said it right, sustain label. Could you elaborate on what issues do labels specifically cause to the recycling stream?
Sure. So I talked about it a little bit, but just to kind of reiterate, it really truly comes down to a couple components. The adhesive is the first big component. It needs to be able to wash away or separate during that caustic, what it's called is the caustic bath at the recycling process. We want as clean and as uncontaminated PET flake as we can have, so that it resembles as close to virgin PET flake. Then that creates an end market for recyclers to be able to sell to packaging suppliers. And again, I just wanted to reiterate just how important it is that brand owners are driving these promises that they're making, and they're discussing with their packaging suppliers about labels that are able to be wash away or fall under the APR testing protocol. As packaging suppliers, we can't do anything to push that forward without demand for that. So it truly is so important that it comes from the brand owners creating that demand.
Thank you. Kathy, the solutions Janice and Elizabeth are discussing are directly related to clamshells. What are the different solutions you offer instead of clamshells lid?
Well, as I also mentioned in my presentation, we do top sealing. So the benefits that we can supply are the plastic reduction, as I said, just by eliminating the lid of a clamshell and replacing it with film. It helps to reduce food waste and extend shelf life. You can also print across the entire area of a top seal, so you can get your message out by putting your how to recycle label right there on the top, educating your consumer on what sustainable material you're using. And with top seal, you can seal PETs, you can seal fiberboard, you can seal paper, you can seal foil. So you have, whatever sustainable material you are using, Top Seal can help you with the sustainable solutions of your materials and using film.
Thank you. Natalie, we've talked a lot about single-use plastic reduction and improvement. What do you think are some of the top concerns retailers have when it comes to waste?
Yeah, so beyond packaging waste, food waste is the other area of waste where retailers that we're talking to are looking to have an impact. And that's both from a sustainability perspective as well as what a reduction in food waste can do for your profitability when it comes to shrink. So we're, as one of the solutions, seeing that we are able to reduce shrink at the retail level over 50%. And that is actually leading to increased sales, but it's not only increased sales because retailers are shrinking out less and have more to sell, but we believe it's because there's actually a maintenance of quality at the shelf, right? And quality is the number one, influential factor in a purchase decision for consumers. And then we talked a lot about, do consumers care about sustainability? And what we're finding is that when we communicate to consumers at the shelf through in-store marketing, that there is a product there that is going to be beneficial for the me in longer lasting produce at home, but also the we in terms of a product that's going to help fight food waste, we're seeing an incremental 10% or more in sales. And that to us is an indicator that consumers want to be part of the solution. They just don't know how. And if you give them an opportunity, they will vote with their dollar.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Brad, staying on trend with the topic of shelf life and reducing shrink, what about moisture? Does your product degrade on the shelf from moisture?
Yeah, that's a good question. Short answer is no. Our product is porous by nature, so it depending on the produce or application, it will wick moisture. Where perhaps in some traditional plastic applications, it would sit in its moisture. So the integrity of the product in terms of rigidity might be compromised depending on the film structure. What's really important is the film structure and the perforation structure in particular, and we work with our film suppliers, ProSeal, with Top Seal, and we have found a number of categories performing extremely well.
Elizabeth, can you tell us a little more about insights you learned at Our Planet Earth about the recycling process?
Sure. Well, I think what they're doing is just so unique and exciting, being a vertically integrated recycled content packaging supplier. And having the opportunity to go there and really learn about the entire process was extremely eye-opening to me in terms of what happens with our package after it gets out of the consumer's hand. And I would certainly encourage anyone in the room excuse me, that's looking to learn more about that. Please let me know, and I'd be happy to make that connection for you. If you're close to Vernon, California, I would encourage you to go and tour there. But really what we learned was a lot of the issues that they have start with collection. So again, with consumer education, and again, with having labels that are recycling compatible, that's such a huge ordeal to them in terms of being able to create that food grade recycled content PET flake that they're then able to upcycle throughout the entire cycle of the recycling stream.
Janice, what will be the biggest challenge moving to the wash away label?
Price. It's always about price. So basically paper, it's been around for a long time. It's worked. And another thing, just to expand on what Elizabeth's saying about the process, the difference between a paper label and a BOPP label is a paper label is made out of pulp, wood pulp. When it goes back into the water, it becomes wood pulp again. So you've got your water that's this caustic wash that's got now this mush in it. A BOPP label is lighter weight than PET. So when they grind it and wash it, all that BOPP floats to the top of the tank and they just skim it right off and they have clean water. That's another reason why you want your dyes to stick with that label, because the dyes in the paper muddy up the color of the water. So that BOPP material is not readily made in the US. It's imported a lot. They use it for liners of potato chip bags. It's used for a number of different things. And so the cost is, they're saying 40% more per label, which is huge. And then you've got some saying 15%. So we're working with roll stock providers that are interested in keeping the price on par with paper. So with growers, everyone knows price is always an issue. So that would be one of them. The other one is berries are in a very high moisture, cold environment, and we don't know how these adhesives are gonna. We don't know what the shelf life of the adhesives are. If we put them on a strawberry clamshell this season and don't use it for 6 more months, adhesives have shelf lives. So we're a little bit worried and concerned about, okay, we want to take baby steps this year and see how it goes, test the different companies that are offering different substrates or different adhesives, and see how they do on shelf life when they're not used. But also, the testing I've been done is from like Peru to the US on a boat for 3 weeks in a high humidity to see if it stays on, and I've had some come off. So that's a big issue too. We want to make sure it works, and we want to get the price down.
Thank you. Kathy, how long has the tray solution been available to the market as a sustainable option? And what is the biggest barrier for growers to transition to this type of solution?
Well, tray sealing has been available in Europe for over 20 years, and in the US for over 10 years. In regards to what's the biggest barrier for growers, that's an important question. I think it's the unknowns. I mean, for a grower, what is top seal? How am I going to have to change my packaging format? What's the marketability? What's the cost involved? So by sitting down and educating the growers and explaining top seal benefits, and top seal benefits to them as well with warehouse savings, space, freight, labor reduction, I think it will help them look at top seal in a different way. We also offer very flexible financing options and work with our growers as they get into this different type of packaging.
Thank you, Nathalie. Where do you think the industry is headed on its path toward greater sustainability, and how does Appeal, your company, play a role?
I'm really optimistic because, I've been in this industry a long time now, and I'm really sensing that there is this momentum. You're hearing this topic of sustainability talked about in business conversations. Obviously, it's part of educational programs at events like this, which I applaud. And my hope is that we're driving toward a more holistic view and a more holistic approach. In terms of our role at Appeal, we see ourselves as one solution. I joined the company because sustainability is inherent in the DNA of the product and the DNA of our culture. And we're going to continue to try to drive the dialogue in, every forum at every level that we can. But it really takes everybody coming from every facet of our industry together, because what we've learned today is that the kind of tension point between plastic waste reduction and food waste reduction, you can actually trade one evil for another. And so you have to have a holistic end-to-end approach, and that's going to require all of us coming together to evaluate the situation and to think big and to be open to innovations that will really help us address the problem throughout the total supply chain.
I like the end-to-end approach. Thank you. Shannon, similar to our questions
Brad.
for Kathy. Oh, sorry, Brad.
Shannon?
Thank you. Brad, similar to our question for Kathy, how long has EarthCycle been available to growers, shippers, and what are your target fresh produce categories and why?
I'll have to think about what Shannon would say here. Actually, the EarthCycle brand has been in North America for actually 15 years. Shannon started this business and was sourcing her product with partners in Malaysia. We bought her business and repatriated it back to North America and created the EarthCycle brand with the recipe of molded fiber that I presented today. What's best for to put into an EarthCycle platform is something we were very cautious about. We didn't immediately go to a specific category. We, in the last 6 years, have identified categories that work and ones that don't work. And certainly the ones that work are contingent upon the nature of the produce itself, the packing environment, and the structure of the packaging itself. So originally we thought, well, let's go organic, but then we realized that the world of conventional was available to us. I talked about a grape shelf life extension program. We have a client in South Africa that packages grapes in our punnet in South Africa and then takes the cold chain for 3 weeks up to the Netherlands, where in the Netherlands it's top sealed, and then it's 2 weeks to the retailer. So that's 5 weeks, and quality pass, and they're using it now for about 18 months. So we were surprised by that, so we didn't want to limit ourselves to any one specific produce segment. So where have we been successful? Mushrooms. We've been successful with cherry tomatoes, tomatoes on the vine, grapes, avocados, lettuce, soft fruit, and every application does surprise us, but it's really critical in how it's wrapped. So lettuce is flow wrapped, mushrooms were top sealed, and perf structures are really important as well.
Just to check, do we still have time for a couple more? Okay. Elizabeth, how long have recycling-friendly materials been available to suppliers?
Absolutely. So before I get to that, I just want to expand a little bit on what Janice talked about. So in terms of adhesive, just so everyone in the room knows, the majority of adhesives have about a 1-year shelf life. So if you're holding inventory on labels, just something good to keep in mind. But want to hit as well on kind of some of the difficulties that she's had as she's been testing throughout the supply chain. When we talk about wash away labels, the term is inherent that it can wash away, right, with the recyclers. But what we experience a lot within fresh food is moisture, humidity, all of those difficulties throughout the supply chain. So it really truly is a balance of the actual technicalities of the wash away label and that material versus getting it through the supply chain and being able to perform at the shelf level the way that you want your product to perform. So just wanted to touch on that very briefly, but in terms of material availability, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but really within the domestic market, just within the last few years, we've started to see costs come down, be less prohibitive, and have a lot more material availability. Euresic Label travels internationally to try and be on trend with what's happening in the print industry every 1 to 2 years. And for the past 10 years, these materials have been available internationally. But again, that all ties into demand. And it's something that being a North American-based company, we can only get those materials in terms of lead times, in terms of costs, when we have demand for them. And that all comes directly from the brand owners. So they've been out there, but have they been usable? Not really. Now that we're seeing the demand grow in this sustainability sector, definitely a lot more availability. So again, I would encourage everyone in here to talk to your packaging supplier about their sustainable solutions.
Thank you. I think we're running out of time, but perfect.
Oh, darn.
Okay. You're not up. As more suppliers move to recycling ready labels, compostable trays, leading film, and science-based solutions like Appeal that help with sustainability goals, how can growers, shippers best to take credit so customers know?
Growers have always had a problem touting what they're doing. It's always been an issue that consumers don't really understand all the great things that growers do. They're very sustainable. In order to be a grower for 100 years, you have to be sustainable. So that has always been a challenge, and moving forward with this particular issue, I see, the how to recycle icon on your packaging is going to help get that message across. For us, we'll probably do some additional messaging on the back of the label to educate consumers. What does this mean? This how to recycle. The berry industry came together and they built a website very quickly called berrysustainable.com for a consumer-facing site to educate them on what the berry industry is doing. In addition, obviously we encourage everybody to have, on their front page of their website something about sustainability. But my goal is that the single-use plastic that the local MRFs put out, or the recycling companies, to educate consumers, gets the clamshell off there. That it goes in the blue bin rather than the cross through it. And so that would be the biggest education, is creating this infrastructure that they want to collect thermoforms, and it's part of these things that they send out in your mail to say how to recycle. That would be the absolute goal, because they read those things.
Thank you very much. If I may summarize at least 5 key takeaways that I heard today. One was focus on the customer. Let's keep our customer at all times and work end-to-end, an end-to-end approach. Extend shelf life, home life, and educate the consumer by labeling your product. Download the recycling playbook. Pay attention to the adhesives in your packaging and assess its recyclability. But all of you that have naked produce only, you're not off the hook. We also need your support for shelf life and home life. And finally, collaborate with your competitors, because we're serving a bigger good. Thank you.
We have just a few minutes for any questions from the audience. I'll bring the mic to you. I don't want to.
Annabelle, I guess this question is for you. As a grower, we're seeing that the demand is there. We're absolutely looking into it. But right now, just doing the math on a 49-cent a pound product, we're already in packaging up to like $1.50. Do you truly think that the consumer is okay with paying that much more for packaging? Because that's what it almost seems like in the future we're going to be paying more for packaging than the actual product itself. And us as growers, that's why we challenge the packaging as well. It's because how do we get there, and how do we get the consumer to pay for that?
The easy answer is no. Nobody wants to pay more for anything else, right? And that's why we need to come together and really collaborate to find cost-effective solutions that may at first be a cost impact and an investment, but that we can get the return on that investment by lowering the shrink.
Hi, good morning. Natalie, does your product have any properties as a physical barrier for plant pathogens?
So we don't change the inherent state of the produce itself. Our product is edible, odorless, tasteless. It is generally recognized as safe by the FDA, and it's approved for use on both conventional and USDA certified organic produce. So for that product that does not have plastic on it as a form of food safety, really you don't do anything different. You wash and consume your produce as you normally would, just like whether it has its plastic packaging or not.
Thank you.
We have time for one more.
Elizabeth, I think you were using the term upcycling in a couple of, can you further elaborate what you mean by upcycling versus recycling?
Well, I think when we talk about upcycling, it's all about packaging design and being sure that when you're designing your packaging from the beginning, it's able to have a total life cycle rather than being just from the design of the package to eventually being recycled or put into a landfill or anything of that sort. So allowing the PET flake to become as close to virgin PET so it can re-enter the chain again and create that closed loop, I think would be the best way to describe that.
Thank you everybody so much for joining us this morning. I wanted to remind you all that all of the panelists will either have an innovation station or a booth at the trade show tomorrow. So if you have any additional questions, be sure to visit them there. Also, we have our refreshments out in the area and our Power of Produce session starting in 15 minutes. Thank you.